People think secrets hide in the forest. They think danger hides in the river. But sometimes the greatest danger lives right in the middle of the village, smiling with everyone, laughing in the market, and greeting children as they pass. If only the villagers knew what she sold to them as bushmeat, their hearts would freeze and their stomachs would turn to stone. Clara woke up before the sun. Her small house was quiet, her 2 children still sleeping on the mat. Their ribs showed. Their stomachs growled even in their dreams. She sat in the dark, listening to their weak breathing. A mother's heart breaks most when she cannot feed her children. She tied her wrapper, lit the fire, and placed meat on the small wire grill. The smoke rose into the air and soon the smell spread around the market square. That smell was what kept her alive. It brought coins into her hand. It kept her children breathing one more day. "Ah, Clara's bushmeat is the sweetest," the villagers always said. Men bought it with joy. Women bought it with pride. Even children saved their little coins to taste it. But Clara never ate from it. She could not. Her stomach would not allow it. That morning, Musa the hunter came first. "Clara, wrap 3 for me. Your meat is stronger than the one I hunt in the bush." She forced a smile. "Here, take." Then Madame Rose came. "Give me 2. My husband says your meat gives him strength." Clara wrapped the sticks quickly. She collected their coins. Her hands were fast, but her eyes were heavy with sorrow. The truth was heavy inside her, a truth she wished she could throw away. But poverty had chained her down. As the crowd grew, a little girl stepped forward. She had no shoes, her dress was torn, and her face was pale. She dropped 1 small coin on Clara's table. "Auntie," the girl said softly, "please give me 1 stick. My brother is sick. Mama says your meat makes people strong." Clara froze. Her heart shook inside her chest. She looked at the girl, really looked at her. Something about the child's eyes. It was like a shadow from Clara's past had returned. Her hands trembled as she gave the girl 1 stick, refusing the coin. "Take it free. Go and eat." But the girl shook her head. "Mama says never beg. I must pay." Clara pushed the coin back into her palm. "No, child, just go." The girl smiled weakly and walked away. But Clara's heart was no longer at peace. That night, Clara closed her stall and walked home. The market was quiet, the moon watching her like a lamp in the sky. She reached her door, and just as she touched the handle, she saw something on the ground. It was a ribbon. Red. Torn. The same ribbon the little girl had worn that morning. Clara picked it up with shaking hands, her eyes filled with tears. She looked into the dark road, but no one was there. She whispered to herself, "Oh God, not again." And in that moment she knew. Her secret was no longer safe. Clara could not sleep that night. She lay on the mat with her 2 children beside her, but her eyes remained open. The ribbon sat in her hand, red and torn. She turned it again and again, her heart beating like a drum. "Where did it come from?" she whispered to herself. "Why here? Why tonight?" She wanted to throw it away, but her fingers refused to let go. She knew the ribbon belonged to the little girl from the market, the same girl who had begged for 1 stick of meat. But how did it get to her door? Where was the girl now? The lantern burned low. Her children snored softly. Just as Clara's eyes began to close, there came a knock. 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 Her heart jumped. It was past midnight. Who would be at her door at such an hour? She stood slowly, fear crawling into her bones. Knock, knock, knock. "Who is it?" she asked, her voice shaking. Silence. Her hands trembled as she reached for the door. She opened it just a little, only to find nobody there. The road was empty. The moon stared back at her, silent and cold, but when she looked down, her stomach turned. There on the ground was a bundle wrapped in old cloth. Slowly, she bent and picked it up. It was light. Too light. She carried it inside and opened it with shaky fingers. Inside was another ribbon, blue this time, stained with something dark. Clara covered her mouth to stop the scream. She knew what the stain was. Blood. The next morning she went to the market. She tried to act normal, smiling at her customers, wrapping meat, collecting coins. But her hands shook so much that even the old women noticed. "Auntie Clara, are you sick?" Madame Rose asked. "You don't look well." "I am fine," Clara lied. But she was not fine. Her heart felt like a heavy stone. She searched the crowd with her eyes, but the little girl never came. By evening, people were whispering. "Have you seen Sade?" they asked each other. Her daughter did not return home last night. Clara froze when she heard. The girl was missing. The same girl who bought from her stall yesterday. The same girl whose ribbon lay hidden in her wrapper pocket. Clara rushed home early. She locked her door and wept into her hands. She wanted to scream the truth, but her tongue was tied by fear. If the villagers knew what she had been selling, they would burn her house to the ground. They would stone her in the square. They would curse her children forever. She rocked herself back and forth. "I had no choice," she whispered. "I had no choice." But the words did not heal her. They only cut her deeper. That night she dreamt of the girl. She saw her standing by the fire, eyes wide, mouth open, pointing at her. Behind the girl were others. Faces Clara knew, faces she had once tried to forget. They all stared at her, their voices echoing in her head. "You sold us." Clara woke up screaming. Her children sat up in fear. "Mama, what is wrong?" they cried. She pulled them close and kissed their heads. "Nothing, my children. Go back to sleep." But just then, another knock came. Knock, knock, knock. Her blood turned cold. This time, she did not wait. She rushed to the door and flung it open. Standing there was a man, tall, dark. His face was hidden in shadow. He dropped a sack at her feet. The sound it made when it hit the ground was heavy, like raw flesh. "Tomorrow," he said in a low voice. "Sell it." Clara's mouth went dry. "No, I can't. Not again." The man leaned close, his breath hot in her ear. "If you don't, your children will be next." Then he walked away into the darkness. Clara's hands shook as she bent down to touch the sack. It was wet. It smelled of smoke and blood. She pulled it open just a little. What she saw inside made her stagger back, her scream choking in her throat. Inside was the body of the missing girl. And tomorrow, the villagers would eat. Clara sat on the floor, staring at the sack. Her body trembled, her breath shallow. Inside lay the body of the missing girl. The same girl who had smiled at her stall only yesterday. Her hands shook as she tied the sack again. She pushed it into the darkest corner of the room, but the smell still clung to the air. She pressed her palm to her chest, whispering, "God, why me? Why this life? What have I done to deserve this?" Her two children stirred on the mat. They rubbed their sleepy eyes. "Mama, why are you crying?" her youngest asked. Clara wiped her tears quickly. "Nothing, my darlings. Go back to sleep." But she knew there was no sleep for her. Poverty had pushed her into the hands of evil men, and now, if she refused them, her children's lives were in danger. The next morning the market was loud. Voices filled the air. "Have you seen Sade's daughter? She is missing since yesterday. Maybe she went to the farm and lost her way." Clara forced herself to light her fire. Smoke rose. The villagers gathered like always. "Ah, Clara's meat is the best," Musa the hunter said, buying 4 sticks. "My husband cannot sleep without it," Madame Rose laughed. They ate with joy, chewing and licking their fingers. Clara watched them with tears hidden in her eyes. If only they knew. If only they knew what they were eating, they would spit it out and vomit. They would tear her stall apart. But she stayed silent. She had to. By evening, the whispers grew louder. "The girl is gone. Her ribbon was found near the road. Maybe a spirit took her." Clara's heart bled. She wanted to scream the truth, but fear locked her lips. That night, the man returned. He knocked once, hard. When she opened the door, he stepped inside without asking. His face was hidden under a cap. His voice was sharp. "You did well today. The meat sold fast. The people loved it. Clara's knees went weak. Please, I beg you, don't bring me this again. I cannot bear it. The man leaned closer, his shadow covering her. You have no choice. Your children eat because of me. If you refuse, they starve, or worse, they join the meat. Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. No, don't touch them, please. Then obey, he said, his eyes like fire. Tomorrow night, another sack will come. And just like that, he walked into the darkness, leaving Clara broken. The days that followed were like a nightmare. More children began to vanish. First one, then another. Each time the villagers searched the bush, the river, the farmlands, but they found nothing. Yet Clara knew. She knew where the children ended. She knew who was eating them. Every stick of meat she sold was a piece of her soul. She could no longer look her neighbours in the eye. When children passed her stall, she turned her face away. When mothers praised her meat, she bit her tongue until it bled. But hunger is a wicked master. The coins in her basket fed her children. The lies kept them alive. And so she continued, trapped in a cage of shame. One afternoon, her own daughter Anna tugged at her wrapper. "Mama," Anna said softly, "why don't you ever eat the meat you sell?" Clara's chest tightened. She knelt down, holding Anna's face in her trembling hands. Because some food is not for mothers. Some food carries too much sorrow. Anna frowned, confused. But before Clara could say more, another voice cut through the market. It was Sade, the mother of the missing girl. She staggered forward, her eyes red from crying. She pointed a shaky hand at Clara's stall. "My daughter's ribbon was found here," she cried. "At this stall. Clara, tell me, did you see her?" The market went silent. All eyes turned to Clara. Her hands froze on the skewers. Sweat ran down her face. "No," Clara whispered. "I saw nothing." Sade stepped closer. "You are lying. I can feel it in my bones. What do you sell us, Clara? What is this meat that makes people crave it so much?" The crowd murmured. Suspicion grew in their eyes. For the first time, Clara felt their trust shaking. Her children clung to her wrapper, fear in their small faces. Clara's heart broke. She wanted to confess. She wanted to end it all. But just then, from the corner of the market, a boy shouted, "Look! Another child is missing!" The crowd gasped and rushed toward the noise, forgetting Clara for the moment. She dropped to her knees, tears pouring down her face. She pressed her hands together and prayed, "God, deliver me." If only they knew. If only they knew. But as the crowd disappeared into the distance, a shadow stood watching her stall. The man. He smiled coldly and tapped the side of the sack he carried. Another delivery. Another nightmare. And Clara knew. There was no escape. That night, Clara sat in her small house staring at the sack the man had left by her door. The lantern flickered weakly, shadows dancing across the walls. Her two children were asleep, their little bodies curled together for warmth. She looked at them and felt her chest burn. "God, why is my punishment this heavy?" she whispered, her tears falling onto the dusty floor. She dragged the sack closer. Her hands trembled as she untied the rope. The smell rushed out first, thick, raw, and heavy. She covered her nose but forced herself to look inside. It was another child. A boy this time. His small hand still clutched a stone, as if he had tried to fight before death silenced him. Clara stumbled back, pressing her hands to her mouth. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The shame crushed her heart. She tied the sack again, her whole body shaking. She sat in the dark until her eyes blurred with tears. She thought of her children. She thought of the missing ones. She thought of the villagers who trusted her. Every skewer of meat she sold was another lie, another soul on her hands. But what choice did she have? If she refused, her children would become the next meat. The next day, Clara went to the market with swollen eyes. She set up her stall, lit the fire, and placed the meat on the wire grill. The smoke rose, drawing the villagers like always. "Clara, your meat is blessed," Musa the hunter said, chewing loudly. "My son says he dreams of it at night." Madame Rose laughed, buying 3 more sticks. Clara forced a smile, but her heart bled. She watched them eat and wondered, if they knew what they were swallowing, would they not tear her apart right here in the square? Then, as she wrapped a skewer for an old man, she noticed something. Said, the grieving mother, was standing a little distance away, watching her. Her eyes were sharp. Her arms were crossed. She did not come closer. She only stared. Clara's hands shook so badly that the meat almost fell into the fire. That evening, as she packed her stall, Said walked up to her. Her voice was low but steady. "I know you are hiding something, Clara. My spirit will not rest until I find out." Clara's heart stopped. She wanted to fall on her knees and confess, but fear gripped her throat. I know nothing," she stammered. Said looked into her eyes for a long time, then turned and walked away. That night, Clara dreamed again. She saw the missing children standing in a circle, their faces pale, their voices whispering, "Tell the truth, tell the truth." She woke up screaming, sweat pouring down her face. Her children hugged her in fear. "Mama, you scare us," Anna cried. Clara kissed them both, tears streaming down her face. "Forgive me, my babies, forgive me." Then came the knock. Knock, knock, knock. Her blood ran cold. She opened the door with shaking hands. The man stood there again, his face hidden. He dropped another sack at her feet. "Tomorrow," he said simply. Clara's knees weakened. "No more. Please, I beg you. You are killing me." The man's eyes glowed with anger. "If you want to keep your children, you will sell. Do not test me, Clara. You know what I can do." He turned and melted into the night. Clara fell to the floor, sobbing. She pressed her forehead to the ground. "God help me. How long can I carry this? How long before the whole village knows?" She dragged the sack inside, but this time, as she tied it tightly, she noticed something sticking out from the corner of the cloth. A bracelet, small, gold. And she froze, because it belonged to her neighbour's son, the same boy who had played with her children only yesterday. Her heart broke completely. She fell to her knees, clutching the sack, wailing into the night. "Oh God, this is not life, this is punishment, this is death." But outside her window someone was watching. Said. She had followed the shadowy man and seen him drop the sack at Clara's door. Her eyes widened in horror as she whispered to herself, "So this is the truth. Clara is feeding us our own children." Said stood in the dark corner of the road, her breath quick and heavy. She had seen it with her own eyes, the strange man dropping a sack at Clara's door. She had seen Clara drag it inside like a thief hiding stolen treasure. But what was inside? Saad's heart screamed to rush in and tear the truth from Clara's hands, but her feet stayed still. Her own daughter was gone. If she acted too quickly, she might lose her chance to find answers. "I must wait," she whispered to herself. "I must watch." Morning came. Clara's stall filled with smoke again. The villagers gathered, laughing, chatting, chewing, and praising her meat. "Auntie Clara, you will not kill us with sweetness," one man shouted, licking his fingers. "Your meat is medicine," Madame Rose added. "It makes my husband strong." But Said stood in the crowd, silent, her eyes sharp. She did not buy. She only watched Clara's trembling hands, her tired eyes, the way she avoided looking at children. Clara felt the stare. It pierced her heart like a knife. Every time she wrapped meat, she imagined the truth bursting out of the fire, the villagers screaming, stones flying, her children crying as they dragged her away. But she kept smiling. She kept selling. She kept lying. That evening, Clara packed her stall and headed home, but halfway she felt a hand grab her arm. She turned and gasped. It was Said. "Clara," Said whispered, her voice shaking. "Tell me the truth. What was in that sack last night? I saw him drop it at your door. Don't lie to me." Clara's heart stopped. She forced a laugh, though her throat was dry. "Sade, you are mistaken. That man brought me bushmeat from the deep forest. Nothing more." "Bushmeat?" Sade repeated slowly. Her eyes narrowed. "Then why did you hide it like a thief? Why do you never eat it yourself?" Clara's lips trembled. Tears filled her eyes, but she swallowed them down. "Sade, please, I am just a poor woman. Do not trouble me." She pulled her arm free and hurried away, her heart beating like a drum. Behind her, Sade whispered to herself, "Something is not right. I will find out." That night, Clara sat in her house staring at the sack again. Her children slept peacefully, unaware of the storm around them. She pressed her head into her knees and wept silently. Suddenly, a small voice came from the mat. "Mama," Anna whispered, half asleep. "Why do you cry every night?" Clara's heart broke. She crawled to her children, hugging them tight. "Because the world is heavy, my child, too heavy for one mother to carry." She kissed them both, her tears soaking their hair. Then came the knock. Knock, knock, knock. She froze. It was later than usual. She opened the door slowly. This time the man was not alone. 2 other men stood with him, their faces hard, their eyes dark. They pushed another sack inside, and one of them spoke in a low, cruel voice. "You are doing well, Clara. The villagers cannot get enough. But tomorrow you must sell faster. More meat, more coins." Clara's whole body trembled. "Please, I beg you, no more. I cannot do this again." The man leaned close, his voice like poison. "Then your daughter Anna will take the place of the next child." Clara gasped and fell to her knees, clutching his leg. "No, not my children, please. Take my life instead." He shoved her back roughly. "You will do as we say, or you will watch your own blood burn." They left, their laughter echoing in the night. Clara lay on the floor, broken, her tears soaking the dust. She pressed her hands to her chest. "Oh, God, how long can I live like this? If only they knew. If only they knew." But outside her window, Sade stood in the shadows again, watching. This time she saw everything. She saw the men. She saw the sack. She saw Clara's tears. Her hands shook as she covered her mouth. "Dear God, what is happening here?" But she dared not speak. Not yet, because even she was not ready for the truth. Clara did not sleep that night. Her children lay close to her, breathing softly, but her eyes stayed open. The men's words echoed in her head. "Or your daughter will be next." Her whole body shook as she thought about Anna. She could not allow her children to fall into the hands of those evil men. If she had to burn the whole stall, if she had to run far away, she would. At dawn, Clara rose quietly. She packed her wrappers, gathered the little coins she had saved, and wrapped her children's clothes in a cloth. Her plan was simple: leave the village before night, run to another land where no one knew her name. But just as she tied the bundle, she heard voices outside her hut. "Clara! Clara!" Her heart froze. She opened the door slowly. It was the villagers. A group of them stood in front of her house, worry on their faces. "Mama Clara," one of the elders said, "another child is missing. We will search the forest. You cook for us while we search. Your meat gives us strength." Clara's knees weakened. She wanted to scream, "No, don't eat it. Don't trust me." But their eyes were full of faith. Their voices were full of trust. She nodded slowly, her lips dry. "Yes, elder, I will cook." The crowd cheered and left for the forest, leaving her behind. Clara sank to the ground. Her plan to run was gone. If she left now, suspicion would fall on her immediately. She was trapped again. At the market, she roasted the meat with trembling hands. But this time, her heart had changed. She was no longer willing to be their puppet. She was ready to fight, even if it meant death. Sade came to her stall, watching closely. "Clara," she said softly, "your hands shake. Your eyes cry. What are you hiding?" Clara forced a smile, though her lips quivered. I am only tired, Sade. Nothing more. But Sadie leaned closer, whispering, If you are in trouble, tell me. I will help you. Clara's eyes filled with tears. For a moment she almost confessed. Almost. But then she saw the shadow. The man was standing at the far end of the market, his eyes burning into hers. He touched his neck slowly, as if reminding her, One word, and your daughter's throat will be cut. Clara swallowed her words and forced a laugh. Truly, Sade, I am fine. Don't worry. Sade frowned. She did not believe. But she walked away quietly. That night the men returned, but this time they did not bring a sack. Instead, they brought fire. They pushed into her house and set her table ablaze with a torch. The flames licked the wood as her children screamed. Do not forget who owns you, the leader hissed. If you ever try to run, this fire will burn more than wood. He dropped something at her feet, a small sandal. Clara bent and picked it up with shaking hands. It was Anna's size. Her blood went cold. Next time it will not be a shoe, the man said, grinning cruelly. It will be her foot. They laughed and walked away, leaving the smell of smoke and fear behind. Clara collapsed to the floor, holding her children, weeping loudly. Oh, God, save me! I am dying inside. But outside, in the darkness, Sada watched again. She had seen the fire, she had seen the men, she had seen Clara's tears. And for the first time, Saad realized Clara was not the monster. She was a prisoner. Still, she could not yet speak. The truth was too heavy, too dark. And the village was not ready. Clara sat in the dark after the men left, the small sandal still in her hand. She pressed it against her chest, her body shaking with sobs. Anna slept, her tiny feet bare, her breath soft and innocent. Clara's tears wet the sandal as she whispered, Over my dead body will they touch you. Over my dead body. For the first time, Clara's fear began to burn into anger. Yes, she was poor. Yes, she was weak. But she was also a mother. And a mother will fight until her last breath. She wiped her tears, her jaw tightening. I will not be their slave forever. If death comes, let it come, but I will not let my children eat from this curse. The next morning, Clara went to the market as usual. The villagers came, laughing, eating, praising her meat. They did not see the storm in her eyes. They did not feel the fire in her chest. Saad, however, noticed. She stood at a distance, watching Clara closely. Something about Clara's smile looked broken, like glass ready to shatter. Clara, Saad whispered to herself, you are hiding a wound no one sees. But one day, the truth will bleed out. That evening, Clara tried something new. Instead of using the sack the men had given her, she roasted goat meat she had secretly bought with her small savings. She wrapped it and sold it quickly. The villagers didn't notice the difference. For a moment, hope flickered inside her heart. Maybe I can fool them. Maybe I can save the children without them knowing. But as she packed up, she felt a shadow fall across her stall. She looked up, and there he was, the man. His eyes were cold, his lips curved into a cruel smile. Did you think we wouldn't notice? He asked softly. Clara froze. Her hands shook. The man leaned closer. You sold goat meat today. Not what we gave you. You think you are smart? Clara's lips trembled. Please, I beg you, don't hurt my children. I only wanted to... Before she could finish, the man slammed his fist on the table. The stall rattled. The villagers turned to look, but the man smiled at them and said loudly, Clara, always hard-working. May God bless your stall. They laughed and nodded, not knowing the truth. But under his breath, only she heard. Tonight, we teach you a lesson. Clara went home shaking. She hugged her children tightly, praying silently. But midnight came too quickly. Knock, knock, knock. Her body stiffened. She opened the door slowly. This time the men did not bring a sack. Instead, they dragged something heavy behind them. Clara's blood froze when she saw it. It was her neighbour's goat, slaughtered, its blood still dripping. The leader smirked. You like selling goat meat, eh? Then sell this. Sell it for free. Let the villagers enjoy. But remember, Clara, every lie has a price. He dropped the goat at her feet and whispered, "Next time it will not be a goat. It will be one of your own." Her knees buckled. She fell to the floor, crying into her hands. The men left, their laughter echoing into the night. Her children woke and ran to her side. Anna touched her mother's face. "Mama, why do bad men come to our house?" Clara pulled her children close, her tears flowing freely. "Because the world is wicked, my child, but one day, the wicked will fall." But she didn't know that outside, hidden in the shadows, Sade had followed again. She had seen the men bring the goat. She had seen Clara fall to the ground. Sade's hands trembled as she whispered, "Clara is not evil. Clara is trapped. But who are these men? And why do they use her?" The truth was close, too close, but not yet ready, and Clara's silent war had only just begun. Clara did not sleep. The small sandal lay beside the lantern like a warning. Anna's breath rose and fell in a soft rhythm. Her son snored lightly. Clara watched their little chests and felt the night pressing on her back like a heavy hand. "I will not bow again," she whispered. "God, give me sense. Give me courage." When dawn touched the roof, she washed her face, tied her wrapper, and swept the floor. Her hands shook, but her heart felt firm in a new way. She took the sandal and hid it in a clay pot. She cooked porridge for the children and made them eat slowly. At the market, the smoke rose as always. People gathered. Laughter rose. Coins clinked. The world pretended to be normal. Inside Clara, nothing was normal. Elder Jonah stood on a stool and clapped his hands. "Listen, everyone. The harvest festival is in 2 days. We will dance, we will sing, we will eat. We will also pray for the missing children. We must not stop searching." The crowd murmured. Heads nodded. Some eyes filled with tears. Some eyes burned with anger. Elder Jonah turned to Clara and smiled kindly. "Mama Clara, you will cook for the elders and the search teams on festival day. Your meat keeps strength in the bones." Clara's stomach twisted. She forced a nod. "Yes, Elder." Sade stood at the edge of the crowd watching Clara. She did not smile. She did not buy. She simply watched like a guard. "Clara," she said softly when the crowd moved away, "can we talk?" Clara kept her eyes on the fire. "What about?" Sade's voice was low, steady. "I saw the men at your house. I saw the fire. You are not safe." Clara swallowed hard. "No one is safe." "Let me help," Sade whispered. "Bring your children to my compound today. Say they are running an errand. Let them sleep there tonight. I will watch them with my life." Clara's eyes filled. "Sade, after all You will not thank me," Sade said quickly. "You will act. That is all." Before Clara could answer, a shadow fell across the stall. The man in the cap stood there. His smile was friendly. His eyes were not. "Good morning, Mama Clara," he said loudly, so others could hear. "God bless your hands." "Amen," she answered, voice thin. He leaned closer, his breath hot. "Festival day will be big. You will roast early. There will be a new sack tonight by the silk cotton tree. No mistakes. No tricks." He tapped the table twice and walked away, whistling. To the crowd, he looked like a simple buyer. To Clara, he was a blade. Sade's lips tightened. "He will not stop." "No," Clara said, "he will not." "Then we must be smarter," Sade said. "Meet me at the old well at dusk. Come alone. Bring anything you have seen or found." Clara nodded once. The day moved like a slow river. Clara sold little goat meat she had bought in secret, stretching her last coins. She lied with her hands and prayed with her heart. Every face in front of her looked like a question she could not answer. Every laugh hurt her ears. By afternoon, the sun fell soft. Children chased shadows. Women counted coins. A child ran up with a muddy hand and shouted, "Look what I found!" Everyone turned. In his palm sat a small silver pendant, shaped like a star. "Where did you get that?" someone asked. "Near Auntie Clara's stall," the boy said proudly. "Under the table." Murmurs rose like flies. Faces turned to Clara, some eyes narrowed. Sade moved fast. She took the pendant gently from the boy and turned it in the light. "That is my daughter's," she said calmly. "She wore a star. It must have fallen long ago when we bought food here." Her voice did not shake. She slipped the pendant into her wrapper with hands that knew pain. The murmurs fell. The air cooled. Someone laughed awkwardly. The boy ran off. The crowd eased back into its flow. Clara could not breathe for a moment. When she found her air, a tear slid down her cheek. Sade did not look at her. She simply moved away as if nothing had happened. At dusk, Clara cleaned the grill, folded the mat, and shut the stall. She took a round path through the narrow lanes and reached the old well. The place stood quiet beneath the silk cotton tree. The stones around the well were cold. The leaves whispered like old women who knew too much. Sade stepped out from the shadows. "You came. I came," Clara answered. "Do you have anything?" Sade asked. Clara pulled a small cloth from her wrapper. Inside lay a scrap of fabric from a child's shirt, a wooden bead, and a thin strip of leather with a strange mark burned into it. The mark looked like two crossed lines and a small circle. "I found these near an old shed past the cassava field," Clara said. "I followed a smell. I followed ash. I heard a hum. I could not go in." Sade touched the burned mark. "I have seen this before. Hunters mark traps with this sign when they want to warn others to keep away." Clara's eyes widened. "So it is a trap." "It is a warning," Sade said. "And a message to those who understand it." They stood silent. Crickets sang. Far away, a dog barked. "Clara," Sade said at last, "we must move with wisdom. If we shout now, we die. If we wait too long, more children die. So we will carry 2 baskets at the same time. We will pretend to obey. We will also make a plan." "What plan?" Clara asked. Sade's face softened. "Tonight your children sleep with me. Tomorrow I will send a message to Pastor David and to Teacher Ben. They are quiet men. They have strong eyes. They listen before they speak. If there is a trap in the bush, they will see it." Clara pressed her hands together. "God bless you." "Do not bless me yet," Sade said. "I am still a mother looking for my child. My heart can still break, but I will not let yours break alone." They parted without a hug. Some grief is too hot for embraces. Some courage walks on bare feet. Clara slipped through the narrow lane toward home. She moved carefully. A patrol group of young men passed with sticks and lamps. "We will find them," they shouted. "We will not sleep." A lamp swung too close to Clara's face. She lowered her head and kept walking. Near her door, she stopped. The night felt wrong. The air felt thin. A small breeze touched her neck and made her shiver. She pushed the door open. Her son slept on the mat, his small mouth open, his arm across an empty space. "Anna!" Clara called softly. "Anna!" Silence answered. "Anna!" Louder now. "Anna!" She ran to the back. She looked under the table. She looked behind the pot. She looked everywhere a small child could hide. The window was open. The curtain moved like a timid hand. Clara's knees failed her, but she forced herself to crawl to the mat. Something lay folded there. A paper, black with charcoal words. Her fingers shook as she opened it. "Festival. At dawn. Cook everything. Or Anna sleeps forever." Beside the note lay a thin string. It was the same string that had held Anna's hair in a small bun that morning. Clara pressed the string to her lips. A sound came out of her body that she did not know she could make. It was not a cry. It was not a word. It was a wound. Her son woke and sat up, eyes wide. "Mama!" Clara grabbed him and held him tight. "Do not fear," she whispered, though fear filled the house like smoke. "Do not fear, my son. God is not asleep. She stood, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and tucked the note into her wrapper. She took the sandal from the clay pot and tied it to the string. She made a knot as if she could tie her daughter back to her body with force. She carried her son on her hip and stepped into the night. She ran to Said's compound with bare feet and a burning chest. She knocked like rain. Said opened the door at once as if she had been standing there waiting. She read the note, her lips pressed into a hard line. "They took her," Clara said. "They took my child." Said pulled them inside and locked the door. "Listen to me. We do not scream. We do not run to the square. We do not give the men the noise they want." Clara shook. "What do? "We make the festival their last trap," Said said. "You will pretend to cook. Pastor David and Teacher Ben will watch the road. I will follow the sacks. The moment they move, we move." Clara's head spun. "If they hurt her." "They want fear," Said said. "They want silence. We will give silence. But we will also give them a surprise they have never seen." Clara closed her eyes. She saw Anna's face. She saw the men's cold smiles. She saw the fire. She opened her eyes and found steel inside them. "I will cook," she said, voice flat. "I will stand by the fire. I will keep my hands steady. But if they do not bring my child to me alive, I swear by the God who made my bones, I will burn their house down with my own hands." Said's eyes shone in the lantern light. "Then we are agreed." Outside, a nightbird called 3 times and went silent. The village slept in broken pieces. The silk cotton tree held its breath. Somewhere not far away, a little girl cried once and then swallowed her voice because someone told her to. And in the square, where people would dance tomorrow, the men drew a small sign in the dust, 2 crossed lines and a circle. The sun rose bright on the festival morning. Drums echoed from every corner of the village. Children painted their faces with chalk, women tied their best wrappers, and men carried palm wine in calabashes. The air smelled of roasted corn, fried plantain, and joy. But inside Clara's heart, there was no joy. Her daughter Anna was missing. The men had taken her, and today she was to cook for the whole village. Every skewer she roasted would be blood on her hands if she failed. She tied her wrapper tightly and lifted her son onto her hip. She looked at him with eyes wet from the night. "Stay with Said," she whispered. "Do not leave her side. Do you hear me?" He nodded, though confusion clouded his young face. Clara kissed him hard and then walked to the square with heavy feet. She lit the fire. The smoke rose. The villagers clapped their hands, singing, "Clara's meat will make us strong." The praise stabbed her like knives. If only they knew. Pastor David and Teacher Ben sat quietly near the edge of the square. Their eyes never left Clara's stall. Said stood with them, her arms crossed, her lips tight. She had told them everything she dared. They did not shout. They did not accuse. They only listened and nodded. "We watch," Pastor David said softly. "When the men move, we move." The drums grew louder. Dancers stamped their feet. The crowd laughed and cheered. But suddenly Clara noticed something. At the far end of the square, beneath the tall palm tree, the man in the cap stood with his 2 companions. They did not dance, they did not clap. They only watched her. One of them lifted a small cloth bag high into the air, then dropped it to the ground and kicked it toward the bush path. The crowd did not notice, but Clara did. Her heart clenched. That was the sign. The sack had arrived, and her daughter's life hung inside that shadow. Clara's hands shook as she turned the skewers. The smell of meat spread, drawing more people. Coins dropped into her basket. Faces smiled, but inside, she was dying. She looked up and caught Sadie's eye. Said gave the slightest nod. It meant, "We see it too." Clara licked her dry lips and whispered, "Hold on, Anna. Mama is coming." When the sun reached its highest point, the festival dancing reached its peak. The crowd gathered around the drummers, clapping and shouting. At that moment, the 3 men slipped away carrying the sack into the forest path. Sadie touched Pastor David's arm. Now. They rose quietly, blending into the dancing crowd, then slipping into the shadows after the men. Teacher Ben followed behind. Clara stayed at her stall, fire burning hot. Her face was calm, but her heart was racing. She wrapped meat, handed it out, forced smiles. No one knew her soul was bleeding. Minutes dragged like hours. The men had gone into the bush. The watchers had followed. What would they find? Would Anna still be alive? As the sun dipped slightly, Clara felt sweat trickle down her back. She looked again to the forest path. No sign, no sound, only the drums and laughter of the festival. Then, suddenly, a scream cut through the air. It was Sade. The crowd stopped dancing. The drums fell silent. Heads turned toward the bush path. And there, stumbling into the square, came Pastor David, holding a child in his arms. Her hair was tied with a string, her face was pale, but her chest still rose and fell. "Anna!" Clara screamed, dropping everything. She ran, stumbling, tears flooding her eyes. She fell to her knees as Pastor David laid the girl in her arms. "Alive," he said, panting. "Barely, but alive." The villagers gasped. Murmurs rose. Mothers pulled their children close. Fathers clenched their fists. "What is happening?" someone cried. "Who took her?" "Where is Teacher Ben?" another shouted. Before Pastor David could answer, Sadie staggered out of the bush, her wrapper torn, her face scratched. Her hands were empty. "They escaped," she said bitterly. "The men escaped." The crowd erupted. Some shouted curses, some cried, some demanded answers. But Clara held her daughter tightly, rocking her, kissing her hair. She did not care about the noise. She only cared that Anna was still breathing. That night, the village did not sleep. People gathered in groups, whispering, arguing. Some said spirits were punishing the land. Some said there were kidnappers among them. Some began to point fingers. And Clara knew it was only a matter of time before suspicion turned to her. She lay beside Anna, who now slept weakly on the mat, her son curled close. The sandal and the string lay together beside the lantern. Clara stared at them, her heart heavy. She had her daughter back. But the men were still free, and now they would come for her with greater fury. She touched Anna's face and whispered, "I will not let them take you again. If I must die to end this, then I will die." Outside, the night was silent, but in the distance, at the edge of the cassava field, 3 shadows stood together, watching her hut. One of them raised his hand slowly and drew the sign in the dust. 2 crossed lines and a circle. This was not over. This was only the beginning. The festival fire had died. The villagers had gone home in silence, their laughter stolen, their joy broken. Mothers locked their doors tightly, holding their children close. Fathers sharpened machetes with restless hands. But one person did not return. Teacher Ben. Clara sat by Anna's side, brushing the child's hair gently. Anna's eyes fluttered open for a moment. "Mama," she whispered weakly. "Yes, my jewel." "I'm here," Clara whispered, kissing her forehead. "They covered my mouth," Anna said in a trembling voice. "They tied my hands, but Teacher Ben came. He fought them. Then I heard shouting, and I ran." Clara's blood went cold. If Anna had escaped because of Teacher Ben, then where was he now? At dawn, the village searchers went into the bush. They found footprints, broken branches, and drops of blood leading deeper into the trees. The trail ended near the old shed past the cassava field, the one Clara had once spoken about. Inside, the air smelled of smoke and rot. Ashes lay in the corner, still warm. In the middle of the room there was a chair. On it, ropes dangled. Blood stained the wood, and on the ground beside it, Teacher Ben's glasses. The men who searched froze in fear. One whispered, "They took him." Another said, "This is no longer about children. They are hunting anyone who sees too much." The elders gathered the village that evening. The square was heavy with fear. "We cannot live like this," Elder Jonah said, his voice trembling. "Our children vanish. Our teacher is gone. Our women weep every night. This is not ordinary. This is evil." The crowd muttered, nodding. Some cried. Then suddenly a young boy ran into the square, gasping for air. "I saw him," he shouted. "I saw Teacher Ben. He is alive." The crowd erupted. "Where? Where?" The boy pointed with a shaking hand. "At the big river. He was chained. To a tree. 3 men stood guard." Gasps filled the air. Some villagers rushed forward with sticks and cutlasses, but fear pulled others back. "Those men are dangerous," one woman cried. "They are killers." "Will we sit while they kill us one by one?" another man shouted. The crowd began to argue, voices rising, anger clashing with fear. Clara stood silently, holding Anna close. Her body shook. Her mind screamed. Teacher Ben had risked his life for her daughter. Could she now stand by and do nothing? She stepped forward slowly. Her voice cracked, but it carried. "If we leave him there, then tomorrow it will be your child, or your wife, or your own life. If these men are not stopped, none of us will survive." The square went silent. All eyes turned to her. Sade walked to her side, her head held high. "She is right. We go tonight, quietly, not with drums, not with shouting, but with courage." Pastor David rose. "I will lead the prayer, but my hands will also carry a stick. Evil does not listen to prayers alone. Sometimes it must taste fear too." One by one, men and women stepped forward. Not all, but enough. They gathered ropes, machetes, and lanterns. The hunt was no longer for missing children. It was now for the hunters themselves. As the group prepared, Clara pulled Sadie aside. Her voice was low, trembling. "If we go, they will know I betrayed them. They will come for me." Sade gripped her hand firmly. "They already came for you. They already took your child. This is not betrayal, Clara. This is survival." Clara swallowed hard. She looked at Anna, still weak, still pale, sleeping on the mat. Then she looked at her son, whose small eyes watched her with fear and trust. She bent and kissed both their heads. "Forgive me if I do not return," she whispered. She tied her wrapper tighter, lifted a lantern, and joined the group. The night swallowed them as they marched toward the river, their feet heavy but their hearts burning. And as the sound of water grew louder, they saw it. The tree, the chains, the blood. And there, in the moonlight, Teacher Ben hanging weakly, his head slumped forward, his wrists torn from the ropes. But what froze their blood was not just the sight of him alive. It was the fact that one of the guards standing by him was someone they all knew, someone from the village. The river roared under the moonlight. Its waves crashed against the rocks like angry voices. The villagers crept closer, their lanterns dimmed, their machetes tight in their hands. Clara walked in front with Sade and Pastor David. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared the guards would hear it. And then they saw him. Teacher Ben was tied to a tree by the riverbank, chains cut into his wrists and ankles. His head hung low, his shirt torn, his body weak. The moonlight made his wounds shine like red fire. "Ben," Clara whispered, tears spilling from her eyes. "Shh," Sade warned. "Not yet." But then Clara froze, because the guards standing by the tree were not strangers. The first was the man in the cap, the one who had always threatened her. The second was his tall companion, face cruel, eyes like stone, and the third was Jonah. Elder Jonah. Clara's knees went weak. Her mouth fell open. Elder Jonah, the man who had prayed in the square, the man who had ordered her to cook for the festival, was here guarding a prisoner. The truth hit her chest like a hammer. The enemy was not only outside. The enemy was inside. Pastor David's grip on his stick tightened. His face darkened, but he whispered, "We wait." We catch them unprepared, but Clara's eyes filled with fire. That man has sat in my stall, eating and smiling while sending others to death. Tonight, I will not wait. Before anyone could stop her, Clara stepped forward. Her feet moved without fear. Her voice cracked through the night like thunder. "Jonah," she cried, "how many children must die before your stomach is full?" The guards turned sharply. Teacher Ben lifted his head weakly. "Clara," he croaked, his voice faint. Jonah smirked. "So you came. I was waiting for you." The man in the cap chuckled. "I told you, woman. There is no escape." The tall man drew a knife. The blade gleamed in the moonlight. At that moment, the villagers burst from the bushes, screaming, raising their sticks and machetes. Lanterns lit up the riverbank. Men and women charged forward with all the anger of months of fear and grief. The guards stumbled back, surprised. The tall man slashed his knife in the air. The man in the cap pulled a dagger from his waist. Jonah raised a spear, his eyes wild. The fight began. Clara ran to Teacher Ben, fumbling with the chains. Her hands bled as she pulled at the knots. "Hold on, Ben! Hold on!" she cried. He coughed, his breath shallow. "Clara, behind you!" She turned just in time to see Jonah rushing at her with the spear. She screamed. Then Sade jumped in front of her, grabbing Jonah's arm. The spear cut across her shoulder, blood spraying. Sade gritted her teeth and pushed Jonah back with all her strength. "You will not touch her!" she shouted. The villagers roared and threw themselves into the fight. The river echoed with cries, clashing wood, and shouts of rage. The man in the cap fought like a beast, slashing and striking. 2 villagers fell bleeding. The tall man cut another across the arm. Jonah wrestled with Sade, his face twisted with hate. Clara finally broke one of the chains free. Teacher Ben collapsed into her arms, too weak to stand. "Get him away!" Pastor David shouted, swinging his stick at the tall man's head. Clara pulled Ben toward the bushes, her tears mixing with sweat. But just as they reached the trees, she felt a rough hand grab her hair and yank her back. It was the man in the cap. His dagger pressed against her throat. "You thought you could beat me, woman," he hissed. "You belong to us. Your children belong to us. Without you, they starve. With you, they live. Choose." Clara's eyes burned with tears, but her voice shook with fire. "I will never cook for you again. Kill me if you want, but you will not own me." The man's dagger pressed harder. The crowd froze. The fight stopped. Even the river seemed to hold its breath. Then, suddenly, Sade hurled Jonah's broken spear with all her strength. It struck the man in the cap in the shoulder. He screamed, dropping the dagger. Clara stumbled free. The villagers charged again. The fight grew wild. Lanterns fell into the water. The river glowed red. When the dust settled, Jonah was gone. The tall man had fled. The man in the cap, bleeding, disappeared into the darkness. But Teacher Ben lay in Clara's arms, whispering, "There is a place in the forest, deeper than this. They keep more there." Clara shook him gently. "What place?" "Tell us." Ben coughed blood, his voice fading. "A cave with cages. Children." His head slumped forward. The villagers gasped. Mothers wailed. Fathers clenched their fists. Clara looked toward the forest, her face wet with tears. Somewhere in the shadows, her enemy still breathed. Somewhere in the darkness, more children waited in chains. And Clara knew the fight was far from over. The night after the river battle, the village did not sleep. Mothers clung to their children. Fathers sharpened their cutlasses in silence. Everyone's hearts beat with one truth: the evil was not finished. Teacher Ben's last words hung like a bell in the air. A cave with cages. Children. Clara sat in her hut with Anna resting in her lap, her son pressed against her side. Sade's shoulder was wrapped in cloth from the spear wound. Pastor David prayed softly in the corner. The fire burned low, casting long shadows on the mud walls. Clara's eyes were swollen from tears, but her spirit was steady. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "we finish this. No more hiding, no more fear. We go to the cave." Sade nodded, her face pale but strong. If I must die there, I will die, but I will not die in silence. Pastor David lifted his head. God does not give us fear as our portion. He gives us courage, and courage must walk. The journey to the cave. At dawn, the drums did not beat. The villagers gathered silently in the square, holding sticks, lanterns, and ropes. There were no songs, no laughter. Even the children stayed inside their huts, peeking through cracks in the walls. Elder Jonah had vanished. The traitor's absence burned like salt on an open wound. Some villagers wanted to burn his house, others wanted to curse his family. But Clara stepped forward and spoke, her voice calm but heavy. If we fight with anger alone, we are no better than them. We must fight with wisdom. Let the guilty face their judgment, but do not let bitterness destroy the innocent. Her words cooled the fire. The crowd nodded, their eyes turning toward the forest. The group moved in silence, guided by Pastor David and 2 hunters who knew the paths well. Clara walked with Sade beside her. Every step closer to the forest made her heart race, but she did not stop. She could still hear Ben's broken voice. Cave, with cages, children. The trees closed around them, the air grew heavy. Birds flew away, their wings sharp against the morning sky. Soon they saw signs, broken ropes, ashes, bones half buried in the soil. Finally, after hours of walking, they reached a narrow passage between 2 giant rocks. Smoke drifted faintly from inside. The hunters exchanged looks. "This is it," one whispered. The villagers tightened their grips on their weapons. Clara's chest burned with fear, but she stepped forward first. "If I die here, I die as a mother who refused to bow, but I will not return empty-handed." They entered. Inside the cave was wide, dark, and cold. Flames from torches danced along the walls. The smell of rot and blood clung to the air. And then they saw them, wooden cages, small cages, too small for children to be in, yet children were inside. Tiny faces pressed against the bars, eyes wide with fear. Some were silent, too weak to cry. Others whimpered softly. Gasps broke from the villagers. Mothers fell to their knees wailing. Fathers roared in anger. "God have mercy," Pastor David whispered, his hand shaking. Clara pressed her hands to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. "So many," she whispered. "So many little souls." Suddenly, a harsh laugh echoed from the shadows. The man in the cap stepped forward, his wound bound but his eyes blazing. The tall man followed behind him, a long knife in hand, and between them, Elder Jonah. But Jonah was not chained. He was not forced. He stood tall, smiling like a man who had finally shown his true face. "You fools," Jonah sneered. "You think you can end what has been feeding us for years? Do you know how much men in the city pay for this meat? Do you know the power we hold?" "You are a monster," a villager shouted. Jonah laughed bitterly. "A monster. I am a survivor. The poor starve while the rich eat. I only chose to feed them." "By killing our children," Clara screamed, her voice breaking. Jonah's eyes flickered. "Even your hands are not clean, Clara. You cooked for us. You fed them with your fire. You are no different from me." Clara's knees weakened. The words stabbed her. But then she rose slowly, her tears shining in the firelight. "You are wrong," she said firmly. "Yes, I cooked. But I cooked because I was afraid. I cooked because my children were threatened. You chose to kill Jonah. You chose greed. I chose survival. There is a difference." The cave trembled with silence. Jonah's face twisted. "Then survive this," he hissed. The men charged. The battle in the cave. The villagers roared. Sticks and machetes clashed with knives and spears. Lanterns crashed to the ground, spilling fire onto the dry straw. The cave filled with smoke. Clara rushed to the cages, pulling at the locks. Sade fought beside her, blood seeping from her shoulder again. Pastor David swung his staff with surprising strength, striking the tall man across the face. The man in the cap lunged at Clara, but she ducked, grabbing a burning torch and thrusting it into his arm. He screamed, dropping his blade. Sade kicked him backward, shouting, "You will never harm another child." Jonah grabbed Clara from behind, pressing a knife to her throat. "Stop, or she dies," he screamed. The cave froze. Smoke choked the air. Children whimpered in their cages. Clara's eyes closed. Then she spoke, her voice low but steady. "Jonah, you can kill me, but you cannot kill the truth. Even if I die, this village has seen your face. Your own blood will rise against you. Your name will rot. Your children will spit at it. But if you stop now, if you free these little ones, perhaps God will show mercy." Jonah's hands trembled. His eyes flickered with doubt, but greed burned deeper. He raised the knife higher, and Pastor David struck him from behind with his staff. The knife clattered to the ground. Villagers swarmed Jonah, tying his hands with ropes. He screamed curses, but no one listened. The tall man fell under a machete's blow. The man in the cap fled into the smoke, howling like a beast, his shadow disappearing into the forest. And then, silence. Only the cries of the children filled the cave. Freedom. Clara broke the locks with stones one by one. Small bodies tumbled out, weak but alive. Mothers collapsed as they found their lost children. Fathers lifted their sons and daughters high, crying like broken men. Clara fell to her knees, clutching Anna and her son close. Sade knelt beside her, her face wet, her hands shaking. Pastor David's voice rose in prayer, strong and steady. "Weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning." The villagers echoed, their cries mixing with laughter and tears. Jonah lay bound, his curses drowned by the sound of freedom. Clara's last words. Days later, the village gathered in the square. The children were home. Teacher Ben, though weak, was alive. Jonah was locked away, waiting for judgment. Clara stood before them, her wrapper plain, her face lined with sorrow and strength. She raised her hands and silence fell. "My people," she began, her voice heavy with emotion. "Poverty is a cruel chain. Hunger is a whip that can bend even the strongest back. I was a mother who wanted to feed her children, but fear and silence fed me to the wolves. And while I lived, others died." Her eyes filled with tears. "Do not think evil grows only in the forest. Sometimes it hides in our own houses. It hides in our silence. It hides in the lies we tell ourselves when we are afraid." She turned her face upward. "I am not proud of the fire I kept, but today I have learned one truth. No amount of coins can buy peace. No plate of meat is sweeter than the life of one child. Let us never forget the blood we spilled before our eyes were opened." The crowd wept. Some bowed their heads. Others lifted their hands. Clara's voice trembled as she finished. "Feed the poor before they sell their souls. Stand with the weak before they break. Speak the truth, even when it shakes your bones. For silence kills faster than the sword." Her words sank deep, the square filled with sobs and prayers. Mothers hugged their children. Fathers vowed to protect them. That night, the village cooked together. Not bushmeat, not lies, but food from their farms, shared freely among all. Laughter returned, not hollow but real. Clara sat with Anna and her son by the fire. Sade leaned against her, smiling through tears. Pastor David sang softly, his voice carrying across the square. For the first time in many seasons, the village slept in peace. And though scars remained, one lesson burned forever. Evil lives where silence lives. But when truth rises, even the darkest cave cannot hold its prisoners. The end.